and a lot of the people that you're trying to reach are familiar with buildings. You're not trying to, I mean, like if you're up in the Northeast or the urban areas or out west, I mean, you can build a building out west unless you have millions and millions of dollars to buy land. So we're rethinking a lot about our buildings and how we do that. And I don't know how to answer that question other than it would depend on their context and what makes sense for them. It may make sense for them, but there are a lot of reasons not to build. There are probably more reasons not to build than there are to build in a lot of ways.
I think what she's asking is like, how do we, if you've got a group that are bent on building, how can you help them avoid some of these?
Yeah, you ran into changed your dynamics.
How do you avoid that?
Yeah, how do you take
You
away
cast
the
vision unfailingly and unapologetically, and you know this is my opinion. I mean, just from my gut is that you're not afraid to tell people that this may not be the place for them and invite them to leave. I mean, and that goes to the vision. This is the vision of the church, and when you have people come in that want to take that vision a different direction or have a different understanding of what the church is, you've got to be clear, and your leadership core has to be clear that, you know, that's okay if that's what you're looking for, but that's not who we are. And this may not be the best faith community for you. Our problem is a lot of times, I think, and this is my own personal thing again, that we act like, you know, desperate young boys that just want some girl to like them. I remember that stage. I represent that stage, you know, I'll take anybody, just like me. I don't care if there's a real deep relationship or we get along, just somebody to love me. And so we look desperate to the world. We'll take anybody as new churches. Anybody, just come on. Whether you agree with us or not, come on. You know, we just make us feel better about ourselves. And I found, you know, through a lot of pain that if I had sat back and said, you know what, this isn't working, that maybe this is not the place for you, that maybe I can help you find a place where you can serve more faithfully and be a better disciple, that maybe that's a better place for you. To leave that back door open so people can get out. I found that addition by subtraction has worked a lot. That the times when we had the conflict and that you know, and there may be implications, and I'm not talking about denominational, I'm not talking about churches leaving, I know we could go there, but I'm talking about in an individual congregation. Sometimes letting someone go is the best thing you could do. So I would say to combat that is just hold to your vision and hold to your vision and hold to your vision and continue to be who you are. You know, and when we built our building, you know, we were in here somewhere. We built our building. I cautioned. I said, you know, we can't let this change us. And we had meetings after meetings. And maybe that was my problem. We had committees that, you know, met. But no, we had people, and we really talked about that, and it happened anyway. So I may not be the best person to ask. It's really hard once people see a certain, you know, that building. They come in and they want a certain thing. Because when you're starting a church, you have entrepreneurs, right? I mean, you have people that want to come and set up chairs and meet in pizza parlors and schools and bars. And if you have a church meeting in a bar, please invite me. I'd love to see that. Meet in all sorts of places. But the hint is when you grow up and become a real church, you know, you won't be meeting in that stuff anymore. And that's a killer, because then when you grow up and become the real church, then you get real church people. And then church people come and just hijack everything and make it into the church that they left.
That's right.
And, you know, so how you do that is you have to have very strong leadership. And it has to go beyond the pastor. It has to, the vision of the church has to be caught by that 20%, that 6 to 20%. Book Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. It's a business book. It's not a religious book, but it's a great book. Talks about it. And he talks about there's like that 6% in there that you need to have in any given community to tip it. To create a dynamic kind of movement. And that's why we use that 6%, 6 or 7% of that kind of people of passion. It's amazing that you only need that small a group really of your church to really change the culture of it. But you've got to have real strong to overcome that tendency to let other people hijack your vision in ministry, because it can happen. And I think you guys are getting ready to build a building, aren't you? Yes. But they're in like Aledo, Texas. They're in Fort Worth, Texas, and you know that's a whole different world. It's a whole different country, you know? But it's a whole different world. You know, when you build something in Portland, Oregon, you know that the building there is going to mean something different than a building in Texas or in South Carolina or in Detroit or in California. You know, I mean, it's just going to be different. You got to know that. Yes.
When, we also see that if a pastor leaves, there's turnover in the Presbyterian Church,
Mhm.
that if that vision has not been cast very well by the 20%, the church might go to old age quickly.
Correctly, yeah. I mean, unless you need that kind of enduring leadership, visionary team to overcome the charismatic pastor that's there. I mean, if for example, in Zionsville, my assumption is that if Glenn left, that he's got a visionary team here that's going to go on without him. And so you've got to have not just in church, but any business. If it's just centered around a certain charismatic individual and that person hasn't cast a vision and it's not caught and shared by that enduring visionary leadership team, then, it's going to be very difficult going forward. Yes?
Coming back to the question about the building issue that came up, and probably everyone is aware of this, or a lot of people, but boy, I wish I'd have been aware of it about 8 years ago. There's a book, Ray Bowman.
Yeah, When Not to Build.
When Not to Build.
Ray Bowman.
Oh, that I would have had that. But
Oh,
the
wow.
last church that we built, watching the light cycle, when the building came in, the management took over, and the vision, there was the constant, and
We
honestly.
have building policies. We're our building
Exactly.
policy. Who can use the building?
And the constraints and the vision.
How much is it going to cost them to use the building?
Evaporated. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, now, working with another group, being able to share that book, because we came right into a situation where, boy, the Presbytery has property, and let's get a building up right away. And it's like, let's just, and let's take
Sell
50
the
people
property.
and do a $4 million building. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah, that
allowing
won't sink
people-
the church at all. I mean,
Exactly, but allowing people to read that book, share that, and use that as a piece of it. Because what it did is it allowed for some models that people, where we were looking at in the Presbytery, weren't even aware
Yeah.
or any other models. You've got to build a building, you've got to get it up. And all of a sudden, it's created an openness to some new ideas.
that's a great book.
And
and
a
I-
real church
it's
is not.
it's a great book. When Not to Build by Ray Bowman, and he's an architect, I think.
Yes.
He was an architect to build, and I think he saw enough churches building that he said, we got to do something different here. Yeah, I mean, it's in the resource we said, Brian wrote an intro, said starting a church is not rocket science. It's much more difficult. It's much more difficult. It's not that easy, and there's no one method, one methodology, and what we're trying to do, I think, in a lot of the processes, we're trying to develop discernment processes to, it's like the coaching thing is instead of coming in like a consultant would and telling you how to do it, we need to help you understand how to make decisions. We need to make you decision makers rather than making decisions for you. And so those kind of books are very helpful to open up your eyes to see a different way. Looking back, I probably wouldn't have built. I mean, if I could have figured out a different way. The problem is you start facing volunteer fatigue, setup fatigue. I mean, it can be a lot of tired volunteers, a lot of burnout people. But I think I would have waited, because then all of a sudden, I've got a $1.2 million mortgage, and it changes my ministry, it changes everything. But it may help you too. I mean, the old adage, they told us, still, when I was starting off, once you build, you'll double. Okay, I wish that happened, but it didn't quite happen. Yeah, got a question?
You talked earlier about focusing on one's strengths as a church,
Yeah.
focus on your strengths. In regards to the NCD pastor in this life stage, is it, in the very beginning, a sort of a jack of all trades? And when does an NCD pastor usually come in to be able to concentrate on his or her own strengths?
In my opinion, a new church development pastor, if they're going to be there for the long term, are going to have to reinvent themselves 3 or 4 times. They're going to have to, I play poker a lot. I don't know. How many play poker? Anybody else? Okay, good. Probably don't play as much as I do, but anyway. But they talk about when you're playing poker, you have to shift gears periodically. And I'd love to sit down and talk to you. I talk about poker as much as I talk about Jesus, so slightly less. But when you're playing, either you play a lot of hands, or you play a few hands, or you bet aggressively, or you bet passively, and so you shift gears, to kind of keep things. You've got to shift gears as a new church development